Welcome to One Mind Zen. Tonight's Dharma talk is given by Robert Coho Epstein.
The Book of Serenity, Shoyoroku, case number 3, reports a conversation between the king of Eastern India during a time when they apparently had plenty of kings, and the 27th Buddhist patriarch, Prajnatara, the teacher of Bodhidharma, who was, of course, the founder of Zen in China. Prajnatara thus had a most important role, as she is the one who sent Bodhidharma to China to spread their special teaching of the Dharma. Prajnatara is often spoken of as a man, but modern research has suggested that she was, in fact, a woman, which is quite exciting given the sometimes, patriarchal view of the masters from beginning to end. I like the idea of the great teacher who first developed Zen and disseminated it to Bodhidharma being a woman. It stands well with today's Western Sangha, in which powerful women teachers have taken their place beside the male teachers and in many cases taught them, as Prajnatara did with Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma is the mean-looking guy who stared at the wall for 9 years to demonstrate Zazen, but Prajnatara apparently was his Dharma mother. Prajnatara was head of the Sarvastivadins. Don't try to pronounce that unless you've warmed up your tongue. But she had her own style of teaching, largely coming from the Lankavatara Sutra, which may sound familiar, as it eventually became her student Bodhidharma's Bible as well. It's reputed to be the only book that he carried with him from India to China, and he held on to it rather tightly on the sea voyage. Prajnatara originally called herself Kayura, which means bracelet or necklace, perhaps named after her meditation beads, and was a renunciate and wanderer who wandered throughout India begging for her food. She became a disciple of Buddhist patriarch Punyamitra and succeeded him. She taught in various areas of India, which is a story for another time, and an interesting one. But the story of her discovery of Bodhidharma as her successor is worth noting. The following is quoted from the MT, that's the letters M and T, mtsutra.com, which appears to be a kind of a pun. The mtsutra.com website. Prajnatara was invited to teach in Kanchipuram, the capital of the Pallava dynasty of South India, by the reigning king Simhavarman. I've been doing my tongue exercises today. Bodhidharma, the king's youngest son, caught her attention due to his spiritual abilities. That's Bodhidharma. After the death of his father, Prajnatara helped him to become a fully ordained monk and gave him the name Bodhidharma. Isn't that fun? She trained him in all aspects of meditation and told him of his karmic affinity with the people of China. So that's the end of the quote. And she instructed him to bring the Dharma to China after her death, which occurred when she was 67 years old. Also of interest is the fact that the appreciation and verification of Prajnatara as an important female teacher, which comes partially from archaeological things that have been found and stuff like that, but it was also through the research and scholarship of a monk from the Korean Soto lineage, which is one that I don't hear too much about, via Reverend Koto Benson, a disciple of contemplative Zen master Reverend Jayu Kennett. So we have few records of Prajnatara's direct teaching in India, in the group of which Bodhidharma was a part. And given her deeply steeped knowledge and prolific teaching of Mahayana Buddhism in India and her great role in the birth of the Zen tradition, aka Dhyana Buddhism, anything she might have to say about the appropriate way to view and practice the Zen path would be of great value. And we do have this one story of her direct teaching in the Shoyo Roku, case number 3. So let's take a look at it. It's also worth comparing a couple of translations, although I apologize in advance. Well, actually, I don't have to apologize. I'll cut that note out because I do know who the translators are. So I don't have to apologize for not knowing who the translators are because I only use 2 translations and I know who translated them, which is not always the case. Let's start with the chosen translation of Yamada Koun, whose own story of awakening is one of my favorites, but that is also for another time. A king of Eastern India invited the 27th patriarch Prajnatara for Buddhist food. The king asked, "Why don't you recite sutras?" Prajnatara said, "My inhalation does not stay in the world of subject or in the world of consciousness. My exhalation does not tangle with the world of objects. Still, I am always reciting millions and millions of scrolls of sutras." Now, this is a little bit of an obscure translation, as much as I like Yamada Koun, but I want to hang on to it because of one thing that he says in there. And here's the other translation that's a little easier to understand from the very familiar Thomas Cleary. A Raja of an East Indian country invited the 27th Buddhist patriarch Prajnatara to a feast. The Raja asked him, "Why don't you read scriptures?" The patriarch said, "This poor wayfarer doesn't dwell in the realms of the body or mind when breathing in, doesn't get involved in myriad circumstances when breathing out. I always reiterate such a scripture, hundreds, thousands, millions of scrolls." And there's another translation, which I don't have at the moment, but which I like, which says that basically that is the recitation of the sutra, that kind of breathing out and breathing in. What I like about the first translation, the second translation is definitely easier to absorb. But he clearly leaves one thing out, which I like, which is when he says that my exhalation does not tangle with the world of objects. The world of objects. So that's a little different than just circumstances. So I like including that. So when we breathe in, the act of inhalation emphasizes the existence of the body and its boundaries. And we have a very strong feeling of, not to make a pun of it, inspiration. The literal meaning of which is to breathe in, not by coincidence. We feel the full energy of the personal self as a physical organism, being fed with billions of molecules of oxygen, which converts our glucose into ATP and makes us want to do things. So the inhalation, in Zen terms, is a rather dangerous phase of the breathing, as it appears to underline the existence of a separate self associated with the animal metabolism. That may be one reason why Zen breath counting traditionally accents the count on the out-breath, letting go of self. So it is a little more difficult to see the in-breath as being completely empty, just as our stomach may not feel so empty right after eating. But the out-breath also has its egoic danger, because when we exhale and let go of the physical self-inflation, we have a tendency to look outward and see the solidity and actuality of the world of multifarious objects. And we tend to see the world of objects as real and expansive and perhaps even endless, postulating a very concrete universe that is in fact made up of objects and into which we participate by breathing out. So perhaps on the out-breath, we may be tempted to think that we are just another concrete object in a collection of objects which are out there, and that we are out there too. Funnily enough, when Thich Nhat Hanh was about to pass away and the head monks insisted that they would make a giant stupa as a memorial to their great teacher, the Buddhist memorial mound, he said, "If you must make such a monument, it should have a plaque on it that says, 'I am not in here and I am not out there either, but I am in the footsteps of anyone who walks with mindfulness.'" So the mindful footstep, which participates in the Dharmakaya, the true Dharmic reality, it may be seen as the true self, but is even that a self? So what is the great Prajnatara's solution to this dilemma of breathing out to solidify, breathing in to solidify the interior self and breathing out to solidify the exterior of the self? She advises us not to dwell in that which is associated with the personal body or mind while breathing in, and not to get involved in all the stuff that's happening in the world, and in Yamada Kuen's translation, not to get caught up in thoughts and concerns about the world of objects when breathing out. So, if we are not concerned with body and mind when breathing in, and we are not concerned with circumstances and objects when breathing out, what happens to the self? Well, the self is formed of the thought of separation. In fact, Soto Master Suzuki Roshi said, quote, "Yourself is just a thought in your mind," end quote. Now, leaving aside someone who would want to be cute, and there may be one or two of them even present who would say, yeah, but not even the mind is real. Leaving that aside, that seems like a pretty good thing to notice. And in concrete, practical terms, we can practice it with our breathing, along with Bodhidharma's great teacher, Prajnatara.